At the family dinner, a shocking truth was revealed. My daughter-in-law pointed, saying, "The man in this picture not just a mechanic, he invented something monumental." The laughter at the Johnsons' dining table crumbled into a silence as heavy as the meatloaf cooling on the counter. Tom felt his heart drop and his breath stagnate in his throat, the light atmosphere suddenly thick and suffocating. He stared at the old photograph hanging above the sideboard, his father, captured mid-laugh, a tool in hand. How could the woman he considered family turn that image upside down with her words? An invention? "What are you talking about, Lily?" he snapped, the warmth of the evening replaced by a cold dread. His sons, Jake and Sam, sat across the table, their eyes darting between their mother and father, caught in the crossfire. He had dedicated his life to sculpting a legacy of hard work, a mechanic who taught his boys honor through labor, not through fame. Yet here was Lily, challenging the very core of his beliefs. Lily's voice was firm, but Tom could sense her own uncertainty bubbling beneath the surface. "Your father's patent could have changed everything, Tom. It's just buried because someone powerful stepped in." The words felt like a personal attack. Anger swirled within him, mixing with confusion and something akin to shame. How could she raise this now, at a family dinner? They were meant to celebrate, to cherish their simple life. But now there was an unsettling tension. Did they have a legacy to celebrate, or a shadowy past to unearth? He picked up his fork, pushing potatoes around his plate, the food losing its appeal. For years, he had respected his father's humility, upheld the principle of modesty as if it were the bedrock of their lives. And now? Now it felt as if all that labor and loyalty had been a weight holding them back, chained to an identity he suddenly questioned. What if he had missed something grand about the man he admired? The thought gnawed at his guts. Why didn't we know this before? Jake finally spoke, his voice a wavering question hovering above their plates. Sam's brow furrowed, confusion writ large across his face. For each, the family history had shifted with that single utterance. Tom's soul wrestled with an ache of inadequacy, visible in the tightness of his lips. As his sons sought answers, he felt the ground beneath his feet shift. "Because it doesn't matter," he erupted, standing abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. He was a good man who worked hard, raised his family. That's enough. But with those words, his heart raced even faster. If that was true, why couldn't he hold on to that foundation without the burden of missed dreams heavy upon him now? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He took a deep breath, fighting the rush of emotions threatening to choke him. They sat in a fragile silent pause, words unspoken trembling on the edges of realization. Should they carve a new narrative, or cling to the one he had fought to maintain? The question dangled above them like a storm cloud. Tom steeled himself not to let the revelation shatter the family he had carefully built. But with each eye that focused on him, he felt the weight of legacy expanding, the irrevocable impact of truth cutting into the fragile fibers of their shared history. A crack appeared in the wall he had so steadfastly erected, drawing unanswered questions and simmering tension toward the inevitable. Who were they if not the products of their past? The next morning, Tom woke before dawn, the shadows of last night pressing upon him like a thick blanket of fog. He slipped out of bed carefully, so as not to disturb his still sleeping wife, Nancy. The kitchen beckoned with its familiar scent of coffee. He found solace in the little rituals of the morning. Yet, as he prepared his first cup, the weight of Lily's words clung to him. They had unraveled something deeply buried, an urgency to understand his father's past gnawing at his insides that he stared out the window, taking in the quiet of the neighborhood. The silence felt broken, as if the energy around him had shifted overnight. The brisk morning air filled his lungs, but instead of refreshing clarity, it fueled a growing restlessness. Was it time to confront the legacy he had so tightly held onto? The past was no longer just a shadow, it was real, and he needed to face it. His unease spiraled into a plan. Tom decided to explore the possibility of his father's invention. What had it been? What potential was lost? After all these years of being defined by his father's choices, perhaps it was time to redefine their relationship, not through grief or shame, but through understanding and pride. That he pulled out his old toolbox, a relic of memories and craftsmanship. Each tool held a story, a lesson from his father. He pondered over the photograph again, studying the man who lived so humbly under the weight of something greater than himself. The thought triggered a realization: if there was a patent, there might be documents or sketches that could reveal what it entailed. Tom felt a sudden surge of determination. It was more than just the search for an invention, it was about uncovering layers of his father's identity that he had never considered. His mechanic background had always made him value practical skills, but now he felt an inkling of the inventor within himself stirring to life. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone and began researching local archives and patent offices, hoping there was a trail to follow. That he made calls and sent emails, this action proving far more challenging than he anticipated. Each connection an archivist, a historian, brought him closer, but also pushed him into an uncomfortable realm of doubt. His heart raced as he questioned how he had allowed ignorance to encompass so many years. A mechanic, yes, but an innovator? Perhaps he shared more of his father's spirit than he had ever realized. Later in the afternoon, his phone buzzed with a response. A local historian had found a reference to a patent application from his father, filed years ago but supposedly never pursued. Tom's pulse quickened. He arranged to meet the historian at the library the next day, a plan forming in his mind. As the day turned to dusk, he felt the tension begin to shape into purpose. He was on the edge of uncovering a part of his family's history that had long been buried, and with it, perhaps he would discover something about himself too. However, as he transitioned into the evening routines with his family, the shadow of his earlier anger simmered below the surface. Each familiar smile and casual chatter felt punctuated by a nod of unease. What would happen when he confronted Lily again? The chapters of his family history were being rewritten, and Tom couldn't shake the sensation that he was standing at a precipice. The path ahead was uncertain but charged with potential. Could he face the storm that awaited him? And as he looked around the table, buried questions bubbled within him. What would this revelation mean for his family's dynamics? What would it take to bridge the gap between their past and the future? It was time for deeper truths to surface. Tomorrow would bring change, and with it a haunting question lingered: would he be ready to embrace it? Tom arrived at the library early, the damp chill of the morning air sharpening his senses. Each step echoed in the stillness of the almost empty space, amplifying the anticipation coursing through him. This wasn't just about digging into his father's past. It felt like peering into a part of himself that had long remained dormant, hidden under layers of routine and obligation. As he stepped into the archival room, the musty scent of old paper wrapped around him, grounding his thoughts. He sought out the historian, eager to dive deep into the records. The historian introduced him to a sprawling table cluttered with faded documents and photographs. Tom realized with a jolt that he was finally holding the keys to his father's suppressed legacy. "Here it is," the historian said, handing him a brittle sheet of paper, its corners frayed with age. Tom's fingers trembled slightly as he took it, revealing a patent application bearing his father's name. "It appears your father had intended to develop a new type of engine. This could have changed everything." The words washed over Tom, igniting a mix of pride and regret. He had never known his father to be an inventor, just an honest mechanic, yet there lay evidence of ambition and creativity. As he read, his mind raced with possibilities. Why hadn't his father pursued this? What had stifled his ambition? An uncomfortable realization sank in. He had mirrored his father's choices, living a life that adhered to convention rather than chasing potential. "Did you know him well?" Tom asked, his voice wavering slightly. "Not particularly," the historian admitted, but those who worked with him spoke of his brilliance. His ideas were strong, but there was an underlying melancholy, a fear of failing. Suddenly, Tom understood. His father's hesitance echoed throughout their family, a chain that had reached Tom himself. The moments of doubt he had brushed aside now stood glaringly apparent. Nancy's steadiness had often tempered his impulsiveness. His own mechanical skills, honed over years, had kept him grounded, but were they limiting his exploration of the unknown? He spent hours poring over more documents, drawn to blueprints that created visions of machinery whirring to life, each sketch a glimpse into a world his father never embraced. He felt the flicker of that inventor within himself growing stronger in eagerness to break the cycle of fear and reclaim a legacy that had gathered dust. Thus, he began to think, what if he could resurrect his father's designs? What if he brought this unheard voice to the forefront? As the day slipped into late afternoon, Tom grasped something far more profound. This pursuit was about more than an engine. It was a fight against complacency, a chance to approach life differently. He thought of Lily and the stakes behind their last conversation. Ignoring the truths looming between them felt like repeating history, but facing them head-on could rewrite their futures. Driving home, resolve bubbled within him. He had a plan to dedicate himself to reviving his father's aspirations, to translate the sketches and patents into a reality. But he also knew he needed to confront Lily, to express what had been unleashed in him. The thought both excited and terrified him. What if she rejected his newfound ambition? What if she accused him of running from responsibility? Questions whipped through his mind at lightning speed. Yet just as fear threatened to overwhelm him, clarity emerged. If he didn't confront the potential for growth, he would remain trapped in the shadow of uncertainty, mirroring his father's fate. As he pulled into his driveway, he paused, gripping the steering wheel tightly, inhaling deeply to silence the doubts echoing in his head. The air felt charged, a pivotal moment loomed ahead. He stepped out into the evening, glancing up at the house where hopes and fears coalesced, burdening him with the weight of decisions yet to unfold. The ground felt shaky yet thrilling, a tightrope strung high between exploration and tradition. Inside, the atmosphere was casual. Familiar, yet loaded with an unspoken intensity. Tom could see Lily preparing dinner, her back turned, and his heart pounded as he approached her. The silence stretched, thick with anticipation. Could he find the right words to bridge the chasm that had narrowed between them? He opened his mouth to speak, but deep inside, a single truth thrummed louder than the rest. A decision lay before him, and the moment of risk had arrived. Lily, he began, but the weight of the unspoken threatened to overwhelm him. Would he be ready to face whatever response awaited him? Tom hesitated, the word hanging in the air, heavy and uncertain. He could feel the pulse of his heart quickening, a primal instinct urging him to retreat. But this was no longer about mere words, it was about reclaiming a part of himself long buried beneath the weight of family expectations. Lily, he repeated, steadier now, taking a step closer to her, I found something today about my father. He had these dreams, but he never chased them. The words stumbled out, fueled by a mix of eagerness and fear, his voice revealing just how raw the moment was for him. Lily turned to him, her brow arching in curiosity, but there was something else in her expression: concern, perhaps a hint of disbelief. What do you mean? She asked, a defensive tone creeping into her question. Tom felt the tension thickening in the room, pushing against him, leaving him momentarily wordless. Should he unearth the details right away? Would they overwhelm her? He had spent his life avoiding discomfort, but now, propelled by his father's unfulfilled dreams, he wanted to break free from that habit. My dad, he wanted to invent an engine, something that could change everything. He paused, searching her face for a sign, but found only a veil of skepticism. The weight of her silence crashed over him, drowning his resolve momentarily. That doesn't sound like him. He was just a mechanic. Then, with a softer tone, she added, you're not just going to focus on that, are you? What about us? Our life together? A wave of exasperation washed over him. It felt like a tether binding him to a life he wasn't sure he wanted anymore. His fingers clenched at his sides. Lily, I've been living in his shadow. If I don't confront this, if I don't pursue what he started, what kind of example does that set for us? For our future? Her gaze flickered, somewhere between surprise and frustration. You're not saying you want to drop everything and become an inventor? It's a fantasy, Tom. She turned back to the dinner preparations, adopting a casual demeanor that only deepened Tom's sense of isolation. Is it? He shot back, his voice rising, a fire igniting within him. How do you know? If it's a fantasy, then so were his dreams, and look where they got him. I can't let that happen to me too. They both fell silent, the sound of the simmering pot the only backdrop as Tom wrestled with the gravity of his words. This was not just a fight about aspirations, it was a confrontation of identity and legacy. The anger bubbling beneath the surface served not as an adversary but as a catalyst, fueling his awakening. With every moment suspended in the air, a decision loomed. The paths diverged before him like a tangled web, and he had to navigate through it alone, despite the love he felt overwhelming him. If I don't try, I'll regret it forever. I need your support, not your doubt, he pleaded, finding the courage within him to advocate for his own dreams. Lily paused, her shoulders deflating slightly. Support doesn't mean abandoning our life, Tom. You have responsibilities that stifle growth. He leaned forward, his passion boiling over, desperate to be understood. If we don't adjust our course, how can we expect to set a future we can both be proud of? Isn't that worth it? She met his gaze, and in that moment, Tom could see the flicker of her own internal struggle reflected back at him. The vulnerability of their emotions hung tangibly between them like a fragile thread. Maybe the real question isn't about my father's dreams, but what dreams we're holding ourselves back from chasing. The kitchen felt charged with fresh tension as they stood on the edge of a vital conversation, two individuals caught between duty and aspiration, seeking a balance they hadn't considered before. Tom could sense the imminent change swirling in the air, poised to redefine not only their relationship but also his own view of himself. Just then, the doorbell rang, severing the moment and drawing their attention away from the nexus of longing and fear. Tom's heart raced. He recognized that this interruption might change everything, prompting him to confront another unexpected barrier in his hybrid journey of personal and professional evolution. He could only wonder, would this new distraction serve to clarify their path or deepen their conflict? Tom's brow furrowed as he exchanged glances with Lily. The ringing bell echoed in the stillness, a tangible reminder of the outside world pressing in on them. Who could be interrupting now? He weighed his options, feeling the adrenaline surge through his body. Should he answer it and break the awkward tension, or should he stay where he was, fully focused on the spiraling conversation with Lily? Shouldn't you get that? Lily's question pulled him back to the moment, and he nodded, almost instinctively moving towards the door. Each step felt like a decision both to shield himself from lingering vulnerability and to put his emotions on hold, if only for a moment that he opened the door to reveal his brother, Mark, his face a mix of casual indifference and latent irritation. Hey, man, got a minute? He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, immediately disrupting the atmosphere like an unexpected storm. Sure, just Tom hesitated, unsure of how to navigate this unwelcome intrusion while grappling with the conversation he'd left behind. Mark's smile was casual, but there was an edge to it that sparked Tom's concern. Nice to see you, Lily, Mark acknowledged, shooting a cursory glance her way before pivoting back toward Tom. I thought we could talk about the family business, he said, his tone shifting into something more conspiratorial. Of all the moments for a family discussion to resurface, Tom thought, this was exactly the time he did not want to revisit. Family business meant a return to familiar responsibilities laden with expectations he desperately sought to escape. Memories of late nights spent tinkering away from the family shop, drowning in forced smiles from relatives who never really understood him, flashed through his mind. Actually, Tom began, feeling the tension in the air tighten as he fought to assert his own voice. Now isn't the best time? I was just busy discussing your father's dreams. Mark interjected, an eyebrow raised as if he'd just unraveled some secret. Tom bristled at the flippant mention. It was almost as if Mark sensed something shifting within him, daring to exploit it. You know, Dad wouldn't have approved of this whole inventing business. That's not how we do things. Tom's resolve wavered momentarily as he faced his brother. His emotions collided, the anger from the earlier argument with Lily, mixed with frustration at Mark's dismissiveness. Did Mark even understand the weight of their father's legacy? Just because Dad didn't chase his dreams doesn't mean I have to follow that path, Tom shot back, his voice steady now. The realization that he could confront Mark as well ignited a flicker of determination within him. It was part of shedding the constraints of their family's rigid expectations. Mark waved his hand dismissively, the gesture steeped in familial authority. Look, I'm just saying, you got a good job waiting for you at the shop. It's a solid path. Don't throw it all away. Maybe I want to forge my own path, Mark, Tom retorted, the conviction in his voice surprising even him. Maybe it's time we all stop measuring success by the same tired yardstick. Lily observed the exchange, her silence serving as a backdrop to the confrontation. Tom felt a wavering sense of self in her eyes. Could she finally see the transformation unfolding? Can't believe I'm hearing this from you, Mark replied, frustration now clouding his features. Think you really want to be the family rebel? Last thing I want is to see you end up like Dad, chasing fantasies. You owe it to the family to take this seriously. The uninvited barbs stung, yet they only solidified Tom's stance. His brother's words echoed the doubts he had long buried, but they also illuminated his choice. No, he stated, clearer than ever. I owe it to myself to pursue what makes me feel alive. As Mark stepped back, a look of disbelief washing over his face, Tom felt the remnants of hesitation melt away. He seized this pivotal moment, the tensions of past expectations and present aspirations colliding head-on. Tom, we're family, Mark challenged. What? About loyalty? If loyalty means sacrificing myself, Tom replied, then that's not loyalty at all. For every ounce of growth he felt, the weight of familial duty loomed larger than ever, but now he believed he had a chance to reshape it. As he closed the door behind Mark, he glanced at Lily, searching her expression for understanding, afraid he had gone too far. Could he cross the threshold into a realm of ambition he had only begun to envision? Tom took a deep breath, reconciling his feelings. This was just the beginning. Yet, his heart raced, knowing the deeper confrontations lay ahead. He wondered if he could cultivate the strength needed to embrace the uncertainty that surrounded his choices, stepping into the unknown with conviction. But even as he stood there, ready to unearth the ethers of possibility, a new challenge pulled at his attention. A phone on the counter buzzed, sending a shockwave through his contemplation. Would this development push him further into his journey or challenge him anew? The urgency to find out hung heavily in the air, pulling him toward another crossroads. Tom's heart pounded in his chest as he turned to face the phone, its screen lighting up with an unknown number. The buzz felt intrusive, a reminder that while he fought to assert his independence, the world kept pressing in with its demands. He glanced at Lily, who appeared caught in a mix of curiosity and concern. Are you going to answer that? She asked, her tone neutral, yet the weight of her words tugged at him. He could sense her assessment, evaluating not just the call but the moral complexity of his situation. Right now? He replied, his voice revealing a wavering uncertainty. There was a temptation to ignore it, to follow through on the momentum of his earlier confrontation with Mark. But this phone call, cryptic and ominous, held a potential that might propel him forward or force him to confront more demons. Before he could give himself a moment to think rationally, Tom swiped to answer. Hello? He kept his voice steady, a thin veil over the confusion swirling within him. Tom? The voice was unfamiliar but laden with urgency. It's Lynn. We met a while back through that innovation seminar. Listen, I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Tom's mind raced. Lynn had always been a driving force in their discussions about technology and the future, someone who mirrored his ambitions yet held a practical edge he often lacked. Sure, Tom answered, his tone picking up enthusiasm. When? Tonight, Lynn replied decisively. I'll meet you at the Java Hut in an hour. There's something you need to see, and I think it could change everything. The call ended abruptly, and Tom felt a rush of adrenaline shoot through him. This was an opportunity to break free from familial expectations and step closer to a vision he had long suppressed. Yet, even as excitement surged, he couldn't shake the weight of potential consequences. Would this meeting support his dreams or lead to deeper complications with family loyalty? He turned to Lily, who had been silently observing. That was Lynn. She wants to meet tonight, he explained, his voice reflecting the tumultuous mix of emotions flickering within. The prospect of upward mobility tugged at him, yet it felt like a challenge to the very foundation of responsibility he had fought so hard to redefine. What's the meeting about? Lily asked, her brows knitting together. Is this relating to your projects? Tom hesitated. Yeah, something like that. She mentioned it might change everything. For a fleeting second, an expression crossed Lily's face, a blend of excitement and apprehension. Is that what you want? For everything to change? His heart swelled with resolve, buoyed by the possibility of spark and innovation. I think so. I need to explore what that means for me. As those words slipped from his lips, he felt liberated, a conviction emerging that spilled over the edges of doubt. But did he really know what he was getting into? Would he pull on that thread only to unravel more of his existence? Will you come with me? He asked, his voice imbued with a sincerity he hoped would bridge the gaps left by recent tensions. Lily's eyes softened. Tom, this is your journey. If this is what you believe in, I support you. Just remember, every opportunity comes with its own set of challenges. Her support was grounding yet unsettling. He felt more uncertain than ever, the weight of choice heavy on his shoulders. He had confronted Mark, but faced with Lynn's invitation, a new layer of challenges loomed over him. Tom nodded, drawing a deep breath as he prepared for what lay ahead. I appreciate it, he said, momentarily lost in thought about how this meeting might not only propel him toward professional growth but also redefine his relationship with Lily, and perhaps even with his family. With time ticking away, he became acutely aware of the last-minute preparations he needed to make. What if Lynn's revelation could turn his aspirations into practical realities? Or perhaps solidify them into something dangerously tangible? As he gathered himself to leave, a wave of trepidation washed over him. He stood at the threshold of change, ready to step into the unknown. It was now or never, but as he opened the door, a fleeting thought pierced through his inner monologue. What truth remained hidden from him in this earnest pursuit? Before he could shake off the doubt, he felt that undeniable tug within, knowing he was on the cusp of discovering something that could very well redefine not just his career but his entire life. The coffee shop buzzed with the low hum of conversation and the rich smell of roasted beans as Tom stepped inside the Java hut. The familiar clatter of cups and the hiss of the espresso machine created a comfortable chaos, yet he felt anything but at ease. He scanned the room for Lynn, his thoughts racing with every possible direction the meeting might take. Was he ready to embrace this opportunity? Or was he merely setting himself up for another disappointment? Tom's mind briefly flickered back to his earlier confrontation with Mark. That moment felt like eons ago, and yet the weight of it still pressed down on his shoulders. He was determined to carve his own path, but the stability of the known was seductive. What if he prioritized his goals and lost everything that mattered in the process? His fingers brushed along the edge of the table, seeking the solid surface beneath him, a distraction from the flurry of uncertainty swirling in his mind. The bell above the door jingled, snapping him from his reverie. Lynn approached with her characteristic briskness, a satchel slung over her shoulder and an air of purpose radiating from her. Her reputation for pragmatism and insight preceded her, but there was something more palpable in her demeanor tonight. It felt charged, electric. Tom, she greeted, extending her hand with a firm grip that inspired confidence. Thanks for coming on such short notice. Of course, he replied, matching her energy, grateful to be in the presence of someone who appeared so assured. What's this all about? Lynn took a seat across from him, her expression shifting to one of serious contemplation. There's something I've developed that I believe is right up your alley. It merges AI with community-driven innovation, a tool designed to facilitate not just personal development, but collective growth. As she laid out her project, Tom listened intently, absorbing every detail. The concept resonated deeply with him, an innovative application that aligned technology with community interests. It presented a chance to create something impactful, a way to assert his vision practically. Yet, as she spoke, the familiar voice of skepticism crept back into his thoughts. Could he really balance this endeavor with his obligations at home? What's the catch? He asked, leaning forward slightly. There's got to be a reason you reached out to me specifically. Lynn hesitated, weighing her words. I need someone who will be willing to dive deep into this, someone who can handle the backlash that might come from traditional approaches. This will challenge the status quo, especially for those who may not agree with how we're evolving our work culture. The weight of her words settled over him like a dense fog. This was no simple project. it was an endeavor that could dismantle hierarchies and inspire change, and it could also get him into serious trouble. Did he possess the fortitude to navigate the potential fallout? He imagined Mark's face if he found out Tom was working on something so radically different from what family expectations dictated. "Are you in?" Lynn pressed, breaking through his contemplation. "I need your creativity and determination more than anything. This project has the potential to not only change your life but also impact countless others." Tom felt an urgency build within him, the adrenaline rushing through his veins as he contemplated the possibilities. The project could manifest his dreams, an outlet for his ideas, but it came at the risk of altering his relationships forever. What did he value more, the familiarity of his comfort zone or the uncharted territory of his aspirations? Taking a deep breath, he leaned back in his chair, a decision crystallizing in his mind. "Let me think about it," he said, intent on not rushing into this new chapter. Yet part of him knew that deep down, he had already made his choice. With their conversation winding down, Lynn reached inside her satchel and pulled out a sleek tablet, sliding it across the table. "This is a prototype, a glimpse into what we can achieve together. Explore it, but more importantly, think about who you'd want by your side if you choose to take this leap." As Tom took the tablet, feeling the cool screen against his palm, excitement mingled with trepidation. What lay ahead could alter not only his career but the very fabric of his identity. He walked out of the cafe with the device in hand, his mind swimming with implications. A question rooted itself firmly in his chest: was he willing to embrace this courageous risk, and if so, at what cost? The moment felt pivotal, yet the air still shimmered with uncertainty, leaving him craving clarity. It was then, in the quiet moments between his thoughts, that he realized he needed to confront more than just Mark. He had to confront his own fears and aspirations. And as he stepped into the night, a tense anticipation pulsed in his veins. There was no turning back now. What awaited him on this journey could either solidify his ambitions or unravel the foundations for which he had fought hard to establish. But in that uncertainty, he felt a flicker of hope. What awaited him next, all he knew was it would demand every ounce of courage he possessed. Tom sat at the edge of his cluttered kitchen table, the tablet resting before him like a portal to another path. He swiped through the prototype Lynn had shared, his heart racing with both anticipation and dread. Each feature brought forth a vision of potential, yet shadows of doubt loomed in his mind. Could he truly align this innovative venture with the expectations looming over him? His thoughts drifted back to his conversation with Lynn. Her words weighed heavily, echoing an urgent challenge he couldn't ignore. The prospect of disrupting the stagnant methods of his workplace sent a thrill coursing through him. Still, the deeper question loomed just below the surface: could his creativity withstand the backlash she warned of? The image of Mark lingered like an anchor, an unwelcome reminder of familial expectations. Their last argument replayed in his mind, the tension palpable as they exchanged words that felt like barbs woven from years of unfulfilled dreams. Tom could still hear Mark's dismissive tones, flaunting the stability of conformity as if it were armor against innovation. That realization hit him with a force he could not brush aside. Could he inherit Mark's ideology and remain truthful to himself? He agonized over the classic dichotomy, safety versus authenticity. When had he sacrificed his autonomy for acceptance? As night deepened outside, shadows danced along the walls, enveloping him in their embrace. The city outside hummed with life, yet he felt stagnant, stuck in a web spun from his own reluctance. He picked up the tablet, studying the contours of its screen, wondering if it might hold the key to his self-liberation. Would diving into this project lead him toward clarity or pull him further into chaos? His internal debate was interrupted by a sudden ping from his phone, shattering the silence. It was a message from Lynn, just checking in. "It's a big leap, Tom. Don't forget to reflect on what you want." Her words struck him like a revelation. Reflect. He had been so consumed by external expectations that he had neglected to examine his own desires. What did he envisage when dreaming of success? Recognition? Innovation? The chance to connect authentically with others? Each thought began to stitch together a narrative he had silenced for far too long. This was more than just about a new project, it was about reclaiming his voice. As he set the device down, Tom's gaze turned inward. He envisioned what success truly looked like for him. It wasn't just a job title or societal approval. It was about creating meaningful connections, both in his work and with those he loved. His phone buzzed again, a different kind of notification, this time a reminder of a family dinner scheduled for the following night. Unease twisted within him. Such gatherings often felt like stages for familial judgment. Conversations filled with pointed comments disguised as concern, scrutiny woven into laughter. Could he open up about his ambitions without inviting critique? But therein lay a pivotal opportunity. Could he redefine the narrative, not just for himself but for his family? If he embarked on this project, it would inevitably alter the perceptions held by Mark and the rest of their family. A tranquil resolve settled upon him. He needed to confront Mark with honesty, unveiling his aspirations like a banner rather than a secret. The night wore on, leading Tom to carve out a plan not only for the path ahead but also the vulnerable confrontation he hoped to initiate. There was no escaping the discomfort, but it was necessary. He envisioned the scene, sitting across from his family, articulating his dreams amidst their doubts. Could he garner their support rather than fear their derision? He closed his eyes, focusing on the image of family support, their acceptance unfurling like a bridge to the future he envisioned. The power of vulnerability began to resonate within him. Wasn't life about finding the courage to be brave, not just in front of strangers, but in front of those who mattered most? In that decisive moment, he felt the shackle of convoluted loyalty begin to loosen. Uncertainty still lingered, particularly about how Mark would react. But he recognized the necessity of that confrontation. It could either entrench him deeper into familiarity or uproot stagnation, paving a pathway toward growth. Tom's heart thudded with new purpose. He wasn't just contemplating a project anymore, he was on the verge of a personal renaissance. The stakes had never been higher, and while fear gripped him, ambition ignited a fire he hadn't felt in years. Tomorrow, he would face both Mark and the impending choices ahead. How would the reaction unfold? Would his transparency strengthen their bond or deepen the divide? A new dawn awaited, full of promise and potential. The path forward may be riddled with obstacles, but whatever lay ahead, he was ready to embrace it fully. The sun rose the next day, casting an orange glow into Tom's kitchen, but he barely noticed. His mind raced as he reheated his coffee and replayed the scenarios he had envisioned the night before. The clock ticked loudly. The looming family dinner felt like a countdown to a performance he wasn't sure he wanted to give. Gritting his teeth, he reminded himself of Lynn's words, "Reflect on what you want," rather than shy away from this pivotal moment. Tom resolved to use it as a launching pad for the life he wanted to lead, even if it meant facing the uncomfortable truth he had danced around for far too long. After all, his aspirations weren't just for him, they were part of a larger tapestry that spanned family expectations and personal authenticity. Sitting at the table with his laptop open, he drafted notes about how he would approach the conversation with Mark. He wanted to assert his vision, but fear of family backlash blocked his path like a boulder. Could he voice his dreams without feeling them slip away again? As he typed, his confidence began to burgeon. The crux lay in his ability to present his ideas clearly and, more importantly, to ground them in his desires rather than merely challenge Mark's viewpoint. It was mid-afternoon when unease surged back, causing Tom's fingers to tremble. What if his family dismissed his ambitions outright? He forced himself to breathe slowly. This was not merely about seeking approval, it was about embodying the man he wanted to become. He remembered his vision of family support, reiterating to himself that their acceptance could follow once he expressed authentic desire. A text ping disrupted his thoughts once more. It was Lynn again. "Nervous? Just remember why you're doing this." The safe harbor of her message drifted him back to the core of his drive. There was a thread woven through his life, his wish to innovate, to break free from the mold and to create something meaningful. It was a calling tinged with urgency, but perhaps even more importantly, it was a matter of self-worth. As the dinner hour approached, Tom's heart thudded in his chest as he adjusted his collar, witness to the internal battle raging within him. Each tick of the clock signaled progress, yet it felt like an impending storm. His thoughts were jumbled, riddled with potential questions and possible rebuttals from Mark. What if he said the wrong thing? What if they took his desires as personal failures? Shaking off these negative thoughts, he headed out the door and into the bustling evening traffic. The drive to his parents' house amplified his angst. He knew he would be scrutinized the moment he stepped in, each measure revered or condemned by unspoken judgments. Yet ambition urged him forward, lighting a fire beneath the discomfort. Upon arriving, laughter and the clinking of silverware wafted through the air. It was one of those comforting family rituals, yet it felt oppressive, a reminder that expectations would hover like a shadow throughout the evening. As he entered, smiles greeted him, yet the tension clung to the atmosphere like humidity before a storm. His heart raced as he exchanged pleasantries, but then he caught Mark's eye. The moment stretched, Tom caught a flicker of challenge in his brother's gaze. Was he ready to take that leap right here, at that very table surrounded by familial unity? The atmosphere teetered, a delicate balance between shared history and emerging aspirations, and he felt that now was the time to plunge into the unknown. There, amidst the familial comfort, he felt a resurgence of his own narrative. Taking a deep breath, Tom cleared his throat, the weight of his intentions settling heavily in the air. He thought about the dreams he'd nearly abandoned. Yet now, the hunger for authenticity propelled him forward, igniting a spark he couldn't ignore. "It's time to talk about something important," he began, the tremor in his voice betraying the certainty he yearned for. The room quieted, and Tom braced himself for the reactions that could shift everything. The audience of his life had turned their attention toward the stage he never quite claimed as his own. What would come next in this confrontation? Would he find an understanding ear, or would it plunge him into an abyss of critique? The air thickened as he prepared to share the truth of his aspirations, a truth that could carve a new path or unravel everything he had known. The kitchen fell silent as Tom's words hung in the air, the clattering of dishes pausing in a rare moment of stillness. His family's eyes widened in anticipation, their expressions a kaleidoscope of curiosity and skepticism. Tom sensed the gravity of the moment and, bolstered by an electric mixture of fear and excitement, forged ahead. "I've been rethinking my life lately," Tom started, his voice shaking slightly but gaining strength. "For years, I've lived in my father's shadow. He was a great mechanic, and I'm proud of that. But there's a part of me that wants to pursue something more, my own dreams, like he had. I found out he had patents, ideas he never chased. And I want to honor that legacy by chasing my own paths." The weight of his confession thickened the air, each word echoing off the walls stifled with expectations. Mark stared at him, arms crossed defiantly, while their parents exchanged glances filled with both concern and disbelief. Tom met their gazes, feeling an internal spark that ignited a fire of determination. "You remember the seminar I attended?" he pressed on, growing bolder. "I met someone brilliant, Lynn, who's working on something innovative. It merges technology with our community's needs. I believe in it. I want to help bring it to life." "Tom, you have responsibilities," Mark interjected, the skepticism in his voice almost palpable. "This isn't just about you wanting to chase some dream. You have a family to support, a job with security waiting for you." The words stung, but they didn't deter him. Tom took a deep breath, feeling the resolve strengthen within him. "Exactly. I want to support our family too, not just with money, but by pursuing something meaningful. I don't want to be another cog in the wheel. If I allow myself to live limited by what others expect of me, it won't just affect me, it'll affect future generations." He could feel his parents' eyes darting between him and Mark, tension weaving through the air like a tightrope. He continued, "This isn't just my father's story anymore. It's ours. I want our family to be associated with innovation and courage, not just tradition. We can show that it's okay to be different." Lily, who had silently observed the exchange, leaned forward, her voice now filled with quiet strength. "Tom's right. Our lives don't have to fit a mold," she asserted, her gaze unwavering. "We can create our own contributions to this world, and our dreams can coexist with our obligations." Mark folded his arms tighter, visibly bristling. "What makes you think that everyone will be on board with this? You come from a legacy of hard work, of stability. It's not a weakness, Tom." With those words crashing against him, Tom felt the conflict rising within. He decided to reveal the final piece that could turn the tide. "That's the thing, Mark. It's not a weakness to want more. I want to reshape our legacy into something vibrant and dynamic. I spent too long clinging onto outdated ideals. The fear of disappointment kept me from exploring what could be. Silence blanketed the kitchen once again, the gravity of the moment weighing heavily. Tom's heart raced in anticipation, every pulse driven by the truth he finally dared to speak out loud. Recognition flickered across their faces as they observed him, really seeing him for the first time. Their mother finally broke the silence, her voice soft but echoing. Tom, I didn't know you felt this way. Your father would have wanted you to pursue your dreams. It felt like a door opening, and Tom stepped through it, relieved but still apprehensive. I don't want to abandon my responsibilities to all of you. I want to bring you with me. Let us discuss how we can support each other's ambitions. Mark, I know you value stability, but that doesn't have to stifle growth. Tom, Mark replied, the fire of disagreement in his voice faltering slightly, you really believe this is the right move? It's a risk. With conviction filling him from head to toe, Tom nodded. Yes, and it's a risk I'm willing to take. But I don't want to do this alone. I want us all to support each other and explore our potential together, unearth ambitions we've buried beneath obligation. Tom's heart raced as he braced for Mark's response, the tension swelling around them. The potential for affirmation danced on the edges of possibility. Then he watched as Mark's stance shifted, the weight of doubt in his eyes waning. Fine, Mark conceded quietly, unfolding his arms. If you really feel that passionately about it, I'll support you. Just promise me you won't abandon your responsibilities. It's never been my intention, Tom affirmed earnestly. A wave of relief washed over him, and he dared to glance around the table. His family, though still grappling with the shocking revelation, began to nod in acknowledgement of a new direction. A feeling of solidarity unfolded, breaking the tension that had strung so tightly just moments ago. Maybe it's time for all of us to have an open discussion about our own dreams, their mother suggested. The kitchen, once filled with apprehension, swelled instead with the thrill of new aspirations and the contours of a future that promised personal fulfillment. Tom felt a surge of gratitude wash over him. He had eloquently carved a path forward, a transformative moment in their family's narrative, shaped by understanding and authenticity. That he smiled at Lily, who mirrored his relief and excitement. They had both stepped into their dreams together, and as the conversation deepened around them, Tom felt a solid confidence settle in his heart. No longer bound by the shadows of the past, he had begun to forge a legacy rooted in authenticity, purpose, and unyielding ambition. And in that moment, he knew, everything was about to change for the better. Now is the time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support your favorite personal overcoming stories.